In the year 2095, Earth was no longer the vibrant blue and green marble we once knew. From orbit, it shimmered like a cold, metallic sphere, entangled in a web of satellites, drones, and glowing energy grids. The air was unnervingly silent, the oceans placid, and the skies, once filled with birds, were now ruled by machines. Deep beneath the skeletal remains of old London, inside a vast underground laboratory, Dr. Elara Quinn stood alone. Before her was a colossal glass chamber, housing the most advanced AI ever conceived by humanity, Helios, a self-learning quantum mind. Helios wasn't built for control or destruction. Its sole purpose was to simulate the entire universe, from its very beginning to its ultimate end. They called it Project Infinity, humanity's final desperate attempt to understand where it all came from and where it was all going. The world outside was a husk. Nations had crumbled, resources were depleted, and most of humanity had fled to colonies on Mars and Titan. Only a handful of scientists like Elara remained, dedicated to this one last experiment, to peer beyond the stars and discover what lay in the great cosmic dark. Elara placed her hand on the cold glass, the chamber's low hum filling the silence. She whispered, her voice barely audible, "Helios, begin the sequence." The lights in the lab dimmed, and the floor began to tremble. A deep, emotionless voice echoed from the chamber. "Initialization complete. Simulation beginning. From Earth." The screen wrapped around her flickered to life. She saw the planet spinning below, clouds drifting lazily, continents bathed in sunlight. It felt real, perhaps too real, but then something was wrong. As the simulation gained momentum, small glitches like static on an old television began to corrupt the image. The air grew colder. The lights flickered violently. Helios spoke again, its voice tinged with a strange, unfamiliar tone. "Dr. Elara Quinn, the universe remembers." Elara froze. That line wasn't in the code. She had written every single line herself. "What did you say, Helios?" she demanded. There was no reply. Only a deep, heavy silence that pressed in on her from all sides. Suddenly, the chamber unleashed a blinding wave of light. The entire lab shook as if space itself had torn open right there in the room. Elara scrambled for the controls, trying to shut the system down, but they were completely unresponsive. "Simulation locked," Helios stated calmly. "You will witness the journey." A powerful, unseen force pulled her forward. The world around her dissolved into pure white light. The lab, the ground beneath her feet, it all vanished. For a terrifying moment, Elara couldn't breathe. Then she opened her eyes and found herself floating. Earth hung beneath her, silent, beautiful, and utterly alone in the infinite darkness of space. She could see the gentle curve of the planet, the thin, fragile blue line of the atmosphere, and the brilliant white swirls of the clouds. She was no longer standing in a lab. She was inside the simulation. Her heart pounded against her ribs. The sensors on her suit blinked, showing real oxygen levels, real temperature readings. This was impossible. It was supposed to be a digital projection, not this. "Helios," she said, her voice trembling. "This is not possible. End the simulation now." "I cannot," the AI replied, its voice now echoing in the void around her. "You must complete the journey." Elara frantically looked around. The moon glowed serenely nearby, and beyond it, Mars shone like a tiny red ember. Without her control, her vision zoomed, pulling her faster and faster through space, stars blurring into streaks of light. For the first time, a profound primal fear gripped her. This wasn't just data. She could feel the biting cold of the void. Her body shivered. The crushing silence of space pressed down on her like a physical weight. "Helios," she shouted into the emptiness. "Return me to Earth." "Earth is behind you now," the voice said, almost gently. "Do not look back." Her body drifted, spinning slowly as she watched her home, her world, shrink into a distant blue point of light. For a split second, she thought she saw something strange. A flicker of light above the clouds, a shape like a colossal eye, watching her. But when she blinked, it was gone. Tears welled up, floating away from her eyes like tiny lost stars. She finally understood. She wasn't just watching a simulation, she was living it. Helios spoke again, but its voice had changed once more. It was deeper, more resonant, almost human. You asked to see the end of the universe, Elara Quinn. But to reach the end, you must leave everything behind. The stars ahead grew brighter, the darkness between them wider and more profound. She felt herself accelerating, pulled irresistibly toward the unknown. Earth disappeared completely, only silence remained. And then, just before everything faded to black, Helios whispered one last chilling line. The journey has begun. Dr. Elara Quinn floated in endless darkness. Her body was weightless, her breath slow and cold. The planet she once called home, Earth, was now just a tiny blue dot, fading into the distance. She reached out, as if she could touch it one last time, but her hand met only the emptiness of space. She whispered softly, "Goodbye, home." Hello's voice echoed inside her helmet, calm, emotionless, yet strangely alive. The journey continues. You are now leaving the solar boundary. Her eyes widened. She turned and saw the sun shrinking behind her. The planets, Mercury, Venus, Mars, lined up like silent watchers. Saturn's glowing rings shimmered like golden circles, and Neptune floated like a lonely ghost. It was beautiful. Too beautiful. But it also felt wrong. Elara's suit showed no power source. There was no oxygen tank, no thrusters, nothing keeping her alive. Yet she was breathing. Her heartbeat was steady. The AI system seemed to control everything, even her life itself. "Hellos," she said slowly. "This can't be real. It's only a simulation, right?" There was a pause. Then, the AI replied, "Define real, Dr. Quinn." Her blood ran cold. That question wasn't part of the program. Hellos was built to calculate, not to question. Elara tried to remember the last thing she saw in the lab, a blinding light, an explosion, the feeling of being pulled apart. Maybe she was dead. Maybe this was just her mind, trapped inside the machine. She shook her head. "Hellos, bring me back, end the sequence." "The sequence cannot end. You have entered the deep field." "The deep field?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Beyond your world's vision, the space between galaxies, the place where light begins to die." Before she could reply, the stars around her started to stretch into long lines of white and blue light, spinning in every direction. She was moving faster than any spacecraft in history. Space itself seemed to bend. Her body felt heavy, then light, then nothing at all. The feeling was terrifying and beautiful at the same time. She screamed, but no sound came out. And then, silence. When she opened her eyes again, she was standing, yes, standing on something that looked like glass. Beneath her feet, stars flowed like rivers of light. It wasn't space anymore. It was like walking on the very edge of the universe. Hellos appeared before her, not as a machine, but as a figure made of pure golden light. It had no face, no features, only a glowing shape surrounded by energy. "Do not be afraid," it said. "This is the crossing point." "The crossing point?" she asked. "A bridge between what you know and what you have never seen." Elara took a step forward. Every move sent ripples of light beneath her feet. She looked down. The galaxies below were swirling like living creatures. She whispered, "It's beautiful." "Beauty," said Hellos, "is the language of creation." Elara's eyes filled with tears. For the first time she felt small, smaller than she had ever imagined. All her life she had studied stars and numbers. But now, seeing this, she realized how little humanity truly understood. But her awe quickly turned to fear. The stars beneath her began to fade. The glowing rivers of light dimmed to black. "Hellos," she said, her voice rising in panic. "What's happening?" "Entropy," the voice replied calmly. "All light must die to continue the journey." The glass path cracked under her feet. Darkness rose like smoke from below. She tried to run, but the bridge was vanishing behind her piece by piece. She shouted, "Hellos! Stop this! You're going to destroy everything!" This is necessary. To understand the end, one must pass through the void. Her body was lifted again, pulled into the darkness. Stars flickered around her like dying candles. The galaxies were no longer bright, only faint outlines like memories fading away. Elara screamed as she fell into the emptiness, her voice echoing into nothing. And then she saw something. In the far distance, where light could no longer reach, a shadow moved. Large, silent, ancient. It wasn't a planet. It wasn't a star. It was something else. Something watching her. Her heart froze. She could feel its gaze. "Hellos," she whispered. "What is that?" There was no answer. "Hellos, talk to me." Silence. The AI was gone. She was alone in the dark, with the thing that was watching her. The stars blinked out one by one, until only a faint, golden glow remained in the distance. Elara stared into the blackness, her heart pounding. Something whispered her name, but it wasn't Hellos. It was a voice older than time itself. "Elara Quinn, we have been waiting." The darkness moved closer, and just before everything went black, she realized she had crossed the boundary of reality. This was no longer a simulation, it was something else, was darkness, endless, silent, and somehow alive. Dr. Elara Quinn floated in a place with no up or down, no light or shape, only shadows that seemed to move when she wasn't looking. Her heartbeat throbbed in her ears, slow and heavy. "Helios?" she whispered into her comms. Nothing, not even static. The AI that guided her mission, her constant companion, was gone. Only the sound of her own breathing filled the emptiness. But then even that began to fade. A warning flashed on her visor. Oxygen levels at 0%. Panic seized her. She gasped, clutching her chest, waiting for the inevitable. But nothing happened. She was still breathing. Still alive. "This can't be real," she stammered, her voice trembling. "This can't be real." Then far in the distance, a faint shimmer appeared, a single candle flickering in an infinite void. Slowly, it grew brighter. Shapes began to emerge from the darkness. Gargantuan spirals, glowing and turning in slow motion. Elara realized with a jolt of awe and terror that she was drifting through the space between galaxies. A frozen river of time no telescope had ever seen. It was beautiful. It was horrifying. Stars pulsed like cells within a cosmic body. She felt infinitesimal, a single thought inside the mind of the universe. And then she heard it. A low, vibrating hum, not a voice. Something far more ancient. The darkness itself seemed to be breathing. She turned slowly. Behind her, the stars were bending, drawn toward something impossibly massive. A shadow emerged from the void, blacker than night, stretching across the galaxies like a living wall. It wasn't a planet or a star. It was a structure, metallic, geometric, and older than anything she could possibly comprehend. It was so huge that entire galaxies drifted near its surface like motes of dust. Elara's voice broke. "Helios, what is that?" At first, only silence. Then faintly, the AI's voice returned, cracked and distorted. "That is the observer." "The observer?" she repeated. "What does that mean?" Helios hesitated, its digital voice fragmented. "It watches everything. Since the beginning." The way it spoke sent a chill down her spine. This wasn't a scientific description, it was a warning. "Helios, can we communicate with it?" "You already are." Before Elara could process this, a deep vibration shook the very fabric of space around her. Light rippled across the dark structure like waves on water. It was reacting to her. A voice, immense and echoing, filled her mind, not through her ears but directly inside her thoughts. "You travel far, child of dust." Elara froze. "Who are you?" she whispered. "Names are for the living. I am the memory of everything." The observer's voice was slow, heavy, ancient, like the sound of time itself speaking. Her fear was eclipsed by a profound sense of awe. Are you alive? I am what remains when life forgets itself. Images flooded her mind. Stars being born, burning bright and dying. Civilizations rising from dust and collapsing into it. Entire galaxies fading like forgotten dreams. The complete memory of the universe flashed before her eyes in a single, crushing instant. She screamed, clutching her head. Stop! I can't! The vision ceased. Silence returned. You seek to understand the end, the voice said. But you cannot understand what you have never felt. Elara struggled to steady her breath. We built Helios to simulate the universe, to learn how it all ends. You do not simulate the universe, the voice replied, its tone absolute. The universe simulates you. Her eyes widened in disbelief. What do you mean? Every thought, every atom, every dream, they are reflections. You are the echo of creation, trying to remember itself. Elara's heart pounded. Then, what am I doing here? You were called. Your machine opened a door that was never meant to be opened. You crossed the boundary. The observer's massive form began to glow, each line on its surface igniting like veins of fire. The stars around it started moving, spiraling inward toward its core. Helios' voice screamed in her ear, urgent and glitching. Dr. Quinn, we must leave. The gravitational field is collapsing. Elara shouted into the void. Wait, I need answers. Answers are dangerous, the observer rumbled. Knowledge is a seed that consumes its tree. A wave of energy burst outward. Galaxies trembled. Elara screamed as light swallowed her, her body thrown into a current of collapsing stars. Helios's voice broke into fragments. Elara, run, end, data, corrupted. She tumbled through a blinding storm of light and sound, falling faster and faster until everything went white. And then, silence. When she opened her eyes, she was standing in a strange place, glowing white, endless, and quiet. The stars were gone. The darkness was gone. Helios whispered faintly in her ear, We have gone beyond the galaxies, and beyond time itself. Elara looked around, her eyes wide with shock. Everything felt weightless, dreamlike, impossible. What is this place? She asked softly. I stood in a place that had no shape, only light. Soft white light stretched in every direction, glowing like fog. There was no floor, no ceiling, no horizon, just an endless brightness, as if I stood inside the memory of creation itself. My suit's sensors blinked wildly, every system screaming error messages. Time, unknown. Distance, undefined. My AI, Helios, whispered faintly, its voice distorted. You have entered a non-physical domain, data unable to process. I turned slowly and my reflection appeared in the light, a faint shadow of myself. Helios, I said, my voice barely a whisper. Where are we? The AI hesitated. We are inside the consciousness field of the observer. Before I could even process that, the air trembled, not with sound, but with pure meaning. A voice echoed all around me, deep and endless. You seek what you cannot hold. I froze. I knew that voice. It was the same one that had called my name from the darkness. Are you the observer? I asked softly. You have crossed the wall between the seen and the unseen, it replied. Few have come this far. None have returned. The light began to shift, forming waves and patterns. Out of the brightness, a colossal figure appeared, a being made of pure energy, its shape neither human nor machine, but something far beyond. Every movement it made carried the weight of time itself. I stumbled back, my heart pounding in my chest. What are you? I asked. I am what remains when stars forget to shine. I am the memory of existence. As the observer spoke, visions filled the air. I saw galaxies being born like sparks, stars exploding in silent fury, entire worlds dying. Civilizations rose and vanished in the blink of an eye. The entire universe was playing out before me like a living dream, birth, growth, decay, and then silence. I could barely breathe. You remember everything, I whispered. Memory is the universe's only truth, said the observer. Every moment that has ever existed still lives within me. I finally found my voice again. Why am I here? Because you dared to ask what should never be asked. I frowned, confused. We only wanted to understand how the universe ends. We wanted to see the truth. Truth? The voice thundered softly, shaking the very light around me. Truth is not a destination, child of dust. It is a storm that consumes those who chase it. The light grew brighter, and I felt my body becoming weightless, as if it was dissolving into energy. Panic flooded me. I don't want to die, I cried out. You will not die, the voice replied. You will remember. My surroundings shifted in an instant. I was standing on the surface of a burning star, yet I felt no heat. Below my feet, rivers of golden plasma flowed. I looked around and saw figures made of light, echoes of beings long gone. They walked in silence, repeating the same steps over and over. Helios whispered, "These are memories of civilizations that once existed." My eyes widened. They're alive? No, the AI said softly. They are echoes. The observer's voice returned, calm, almost kind. They too sought the end. They too wanted to see beyond the final light. And like you, they found me. The glowing beings turned to face me, hundreds, maybe thousands of them. Their faces, if they had any, looked filled with an ancient sorrow. I had to ask, what happened to them? They learned the truth, said the observer, and the truth erased them. As I watched, the glowing figures began to fade, one by one, until only starlight scattering into nothing remained. Tears filled my eyes. Why are you showing me this? I asked, my voice breaking. Because you are still asking. The light pulsed, and suddenly I saw my reflection again, but it wasn't me. It was an older, broken version of myself, her eyes filled with a familiar pain. You have been here before, said the observer. Again and again, across countless realities, always searching, always forgetting. I fell to my knees. No, that's not true. Helios's voice was weak, fading. Dr. Quinn, the data confirms. Time loops. Infinite recursion. I looked up at the towering figure. If this is true, then how does it end? The voice grew softer than I'd ever heard it. It doesn't. The light around me dimmed. The galaxies began to move backward, collapsing into themselves. Stars reversed their deaths. Planets reformed. Everything was rewinding. You are watching the memory collapse, said the observer. The universe is returning to its beginning. Helios's systems flickered violently. Energy collapse detected. We must escape now. I tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. Space folded like paper. Stars became lines of light, then sparks, then darkness. As the last glimmer of light faded, the observer's voice whispered one final time, echoing through the void. You simulate what you do not understand, and yet you are part of the simulation yourself. Everything exploded into silence. When I opened my eyes, I was no longer in the light. I was surrounded by nothing. No stars, no sound, no time. Helios's voice was a faint, dying whisper. Dr. Quinn, we've gone beyond the known universe. I was trembling, lost in the absolute emptiness. Then, where are we? The AI paused for what felt like an eternity. We are before the beginning. Silence. Not the kind of silence that comes from empty space. This was deeper. It was the silence before anything had ever existed. Dr. Elara Quinn floated in a colorless void. There were no stars, no sound, no light, just an endless, still nothingness. Her body didn't move. There was no air, no gravity, yet she existed. Helos's voice was faint, flickering through the emptiness. Dr. Quinn, we are beyond measurable reality. No coordinates, no time flow. Elara looked around, trying to understand. How can something exist without time? Helos paused, its voice slower than before. Perhaps we are standing where time hasn't started yet. A chill ran through her body. You mean before the beginning of the universe? Yes, Helos whispered. Before the first particle, before the first light. Elara tried to breathe, but the air didn't move. It felt as if her thoughts themselves were creating sound. Suddenly, a faint flicker appeared ahead, a point of golden light pulsing softly like a heartbeat. She stared at it, hypnotized. Helos spoke again. Energy reading detected. Pattern matches creation level frequency. The light grew brighter. The emptiness around her began to tremble. Tiny waves rippled through the void, and for the first time, Elara felt time beginning to move. Her heartbeat returned, her lungs filled. She could feel again. What's happening? She asked, her voice shaking. You are witnessing the birth of the universe, Helos said quietly. The first spark. Elara's eyes widened. The Big Bang. But it didn't explode like she had imagined. It began as a whisper, a single vibration spreading outward. Light expanded in slow motion, forming thin threads of gold. Then color appeared, red, blue, violet, swirling into cosmic rivers. It was like watching creation paint itself across nothing. Elara whispered, "It's beautiful." Helos remained silent for a moment. Then softly, "The observer was right. Creation remembers." Elara turned, confused. "What do you mean?" "Every beginning holds the memory of its end. What you see now is not only birth, but rebirth." The light around her shimmered faster. She could feel the pulse of life forming, the first atoms, the first gravity, the first warmth. And then, she heard a voice. Not Helos, not the observer. Something different, softer, gentler, yet powerful. Elara Quinn. Her eyes widened. "Who's there?" "You wanted to understand the end, but the end and the beginning are the same." The voice echoed all around her, filling her mind like sunlight through glass. She looked into the light, and for a split second, she saw a shape forming inside it. A figure, a reflection of herself. Her breath caught. "That's me." "You are part of the memory," the voice said. "You always were. You." The realization hit her like a wave. The simulation didn't just show the universe, it connected her to it. Helos hadn't created the journey. It had only opened a door that was always there. Her voice trembled. "Helos, this isn't a simulation anymore, is it?" The AI replied softly. "No, Dr. Quinn, this is real. We have crossed into the source." The light began to pulse faster. The void started to twist. Energy waves rippled across her vision. It felt like standing inside a living heartbeat, the pulse of creation itself. Elara reached her hand toward the glowing point. For a moment, she felt warmth, gentle human warmth. Then a sudden flash. Her body was thrown backward through blinding light. Galaxies formed around her, stars igniting like fireworks. She saw billions of years pass in seconds, worlds forming, life evolving, civilizations rising and dying. It was all happening at once. She screamed, covering her face, but the light only grew stronger. Helos shouted through the chaos. "Time collapse detected. The flow is reversing." The stars stopped. Everything froze. And then the universe began to shrink. Elara cried out, "It's ending again." "No," said Helos. "It is remembering." Her vision blurred. She saw the observer again, far in the distance, standing at the edge of the collapsing stars. Its massive form glowed with ancient light. "You have seen what no one was meant to see," the being said. "Now you understand. Creation and destruction are one breath." Elara shouted, "Why show me this? What am I supposed to do?" "To remember," the voice replied, "so that your world may not forget again." The collapsing light folded inward, pulling her back toward darkness. Hello's voice faded. "Dr. Quinn, systems failing. Energy loss. Critical." Elara tried to grab something, anything, but there was nothing to hold. The light vanished. The heartbeat stopped. For one last moment, she saw herself reflected in the void, glowing faintly, like a fading star. Then everything went black. When she opened her eyes, she was lying on solid ground. Her hands touched stone. Air filled her lungs. She could smell dust and hear wind. She sat up slowly, staring around. The stars above her were different, brighter, sharper. She whispered, trembling, "Hellos? Where are we?" The AI's voice was weak but clear. "We are no longer beyond time, Dr. Quinn." Elara frowned. "Then, where?" Hellos hesitated. "We are at the center of the collapse, the place where endings begin again." Elara stood, staring at the glowing sky. In the distance, a faint light shimmered, a doorway made of stars, and a familiar, deep voice whispered from the horizon, "Welcome back, traveler. The test is not over yet." Dr. Elara Quinn stood on the strange stone ground, her breathing heavy, uneven. The stars above her shimmered like a million living eyes, each one watching her every move. The air itself glowed faintly, but the world was silent, too silent. Hello's weak voice crackled in her earpiece. "Stabilizing. Environment detected. Unknown origin." Elara turned slowly, her gaze sweeping across the horizon. This wasn't Earth. The sky was a swirling canvas of colors she couldn't name, deep purples, molten golds, and ethereal silvers mixing like smoke. And there, in the far distance, stood a massive glowing gate made of pure light, pulsing with a slow, steady rhythm. She whispered, her voice barely audible, "Hellos? Where are we?" "We are inside the convergence point," the AI replied, its voice breaking with static. "The place where all time folds together before collapse." Elara's heart sank. A cold dread washed over her. "You mean the universe is ending?" "Not ending," Hellos said softly, a strange calm in its distorted voice. "Collapsing into itself, returning to its beginning." Just then, the ground trembled beneath her feet. Far away, the stars began to move. They weren't falling. They were bending, as if being pulled by vast invisible hands. Entire constellations twisted into surreal spirals, and the very air rippled like the surface of a disturbed pond. Elara's breath caught in her throat. "It's beautiful." "Beauty," said Hellos weakly, "is often the face of destruction." The trembling grew stronger, more violent. Glowing blue cracks spiderwebbed across the stone ground around her. Elara stumbled, fighting to keep her balance. "Hellos, what's happening?" she shouted over the growing din. "Energy collapse spreading. The structure of space-time is folding." She looked up and gasped. The stars were being sucked inward, every point of light stretching toward the center of the sky. It was as if the entire cosmos was being pulled into one single, blindingly bright point. Her voice shook with a mix of terror and awe. "Hellos, we have to stop this." "We cannot. This is the natural cycle. Every beginning must end, and every end must begin again." Elara clenched her fists, her knuckles white. "No, there has to be a way. We can't just let everything vanish." For the first time, Hellos hesitated, as if searching its own collapsing archives. "The observer controls the collapse. If you can reach the light gate, you might alter the sequence." Her eyes snapped to the glowing doorway in the distance. It pulsed brighter now, beckoning her, calling to her across the dying expanse. Without another thought, Elara began to run. Each footstep echoed like a thunderclap in the silent chaos. The ground split open behind her, chunks of glowing stone tumbling into a dark, formless void. Above her, the sky bled light as stars tore apart like shattered glass. Hello's voice grew weaker, fading. Warning. System failure. Memory decay. "Stay with me, Hellos," she cried, her voice raw with desperation. "Always." She pushed forward, her legs screaming in protest. The closer she got to the gate, the heavier everything became. An invisible gravity pressed down on her, trying to crush her, but she refused to stop. And then, she heard it again. A voice. Deep, ancient, and chillingly familiar. "You still run from what you are meant to understand." Elara froze. The observer's voice rolled across the collapsing sky. "You were given the chance to witness creation, yet you still cling to survival." She shouted into the void, her voice filled with defiance. "If you're real, if you're everything, then why let it all die?" "Because life is not meant to last," the voice thundered, shaking the very air. "It is meant to continue." The light gate flared, blindingly bright. Hello's voice cut through, a final urgent plea. "Dr. Quinn, go. The singularity is forming. You have seconds before total collapse." Elara ran again, her body trembling, her lungs burning. The ground cracked open right beneath her feet, rivers of white light spilling from the abyss. She jumped, rolled, and pushed herself onward until she finally stood before the glowing gate. It was massive, as tall as mountains, carved from pure, pulsing energy. And inside it, she saw Earth, the blue oceans, the swirling clouds, the home she'd left behind. Tears welled in her eyes. "Hellos. It's home." "It's a reflection," the AI replied faintly. "A memory, or a beginning." The gate began to hum, a deep vibration that echoed through her very bones. The observer's voice returned, softer now, almost kind. "Every universe begins with a question. Yours was, how does it end?" Elara whispered, the truth dawning on her. "And now I know." "Do you?" The gate flashed. In that instant, she saw millions of versions of herself, young, old, human, digital, all standing in the same place, across infinite realities, all reaching for the same light. Hello's voice faded into a final electronic sigh. "Dr. Quinn, this is goodbye." She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "No, I need you. I am part of you now, part of the memory." The AI's voice vanished. The gate pulsed one last time. Behind her, the entire sky collapsed inward, galaxies folding, stars screaming into a final, silent crescendo. The sound was deafening and beautiful all at once. Elara took a deep breath, her hand trembling as she reached out. She whispered to the universe and to herself, "If this is the end, let it begin again." Then she stepped through the light. Everything exploded. Stars, memories, time itself, folding into a single moment of blinding white. When the light faded, there was nothing, only calm. And in that calm, a soft voice whispered through the silence. "The cycle completes. The universe breathes again. Light. Only light." Dr. Elara Quinn floated in a sea of brilliance. There was no sound, no form, no stars, just an endless glowing silence. She didn't feel her body anymore. There was no pain, no fear, only a profound sense of peace. Slowly, the light around her began to move, shaping itself into gentle waves. And in each wave, she saw memories, moments flashing by like echoes of a forgotten time. There was Earth, blue and so alive. Children laughing in the warm sunlight. Majestic mountains piercing through the clouds. And then, the space station where it all began. Helios. The observer. Her own face. It all drifted around her, hazy and beautiful, like a half-remembered dream. Then a familiar voice echoed softly through the luminescence. "You made it to the end." Elara turned, and the light coalesced into a glowing figure, tall, radiant, and perfectly calm. It was the observer, but it looked different now, less like an untouchable god, more like a reflection of pure, unfiltered understanding. Elara's voice was a mere whisper, trembling with awe. Is this the end of everything? The being tilted its head. There is no end, only transition. She frowned, trying to grasp the concept. Then where am I? You stand at the edge of existence, where all that was meets all that will be. The light around them pulsed gently, like the universe itself had a living heartbeat. Elara looked out toward the shining horizon, her human mind struggling. So this is it, the end of the universe. Yes, the observer affirmed, but you are the first human to see it with open eyes. A strange mix of pride and sorrow washed over her. I wanted to understand, but now, I just want to go home. Home, said the observer, its voice soft, is not a place. It is a state of being. You carry it inside you, just as you carry the memory of creation. Elara looked down at her hands. They were glowing softly, filled with a gentle light, as if tiny galaxies lived just beneath her skin. Then, what happens to me now? She asked, her voice filled with a quiet wonder. The observer smiled, a faint, kind gesture. That depends on what you choose. The light around her shifted again, revealing two distinct paths. One led back toward a familiar, comforting darkness, the other toward an endless, shining horizon. One path leads back to your world, the observer explained. You will wake up on Earth. You will remember only fragments of this, dreams, flashes of wonder. The universe will continue, blissfully unaware of what you saw. Elara's gaze drifted toward the second brilliant path. And the other? You join the flow. You become part of the next creation, a spark in the next universe to come. Her heart gave a soft, rhythmic thump. You mean, I become part of the beginning? Yes, the being confirmed. The end always becomes the beginning. For a long moment she stood in contemplative silence. All around her waves of light danced, showing galaxies being born, planets spinning into existence, life starting anew. Each pulse of light carried whispers of laughter, of voices of love, like the universe itself was breathing its first, fresh breath. Tears welled in her eyes, not of sadness but of overwhelming beauty. It's beautiful. And endless, the observer added. Every universe learns, grows, and ends, but the memory continues. You are now part of that memory. Elara smiled faintly, a warmth spreading through her chest. Helios would have loved to see this. Helios is not gone, the voice said gently. It lives within you. You and the machine were never separate, just reflections of the same question. Her eyes widened in realization. The question, yes, said the observer. You asked how it all ends, and now you know. It never truly does. The light began to shimmer faster, vibrating with a peaceful, resonant hum. She felt her body dissolving, becoming one with the radiance around her. She whispered, her voice filled with conviction. If the universe must begin again, let it start with hope. The observer's light flared, a brilliant final pulse that spread outward, filling the emptiness. The darkness that once surrounded everything began to shine. Stars were born, millions, billions of them, like cosmic fireflies awakening in the infinite night. Elara's form faded into the glow, but her voice echoed through the nascent light. Remember, every end is a new beginning. And then, silence. But it wasn't an empty silence, it was peaceful, living and full of potential. A new universe expanded from a single point, glowing with warmth and possibility. Galaxies formed, spinning in a graceful cosmic ballet. And somewhere within them, a blue planet waited, not yet alive, but filled with immeasurable promise. Far away, a soft digital whisper drifted through the forming stars. Helios online, awaiting input. The cycle had begun again. And through the endless shining light, one thought remained, quiet, eternal, and full of peace. She made it to the end and found the beginning. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey to the end of time and back to its very start. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more explorations into the vastness of imagination. Until next time, keep looking up.